Welcome to Mobile Media. This is David Turchetti of 21 Communications. Today we have with us Mr. Justin Tsang from MyClick.
Thank you.
And Justin's going to tell us a bit about his company and his background. Justin, you're from?
Actually, I'm from Hong Kong originally.
Hong Kong, okay.
Spent some time over in North America, primarily Canada and the U.S. Basically, my education up until university was overseas.
So how many years in the U.S.?
4 years in the U.S. and another 13 years in Canada.
Great.
Yeah.
And could you tell us a bit about iMagic Group?
Right. iMagic Group was established in 1996. We're about 11 years old company, and originally was founded. Our first product was the multimedia payphone back in 96, 97, and since then we've expanded.
Multimedia payphone.
Right. Multimedia payphone.
For those of us who aren't familiar, can you just tell us a
Sure.
bit about it?
Yeah. Basically, we pioneered the sort of fixed line outdoor media back in 96. So we combined the internet and the computer with payphone, which is still actually in use today at the Hong Kong International Airport, the Shanghai Pudong Airport, and also our clients include companies like HSBC, Blue Cross, which is an insurance company in Hong Kong, and the governments of Hong Kong and China as well.
Great.
So we really got our roots started in what we call the mobile internet back then, but it wasn't quite mobile. It's still a fixed product, but it was out of your home, out of your office, and providing content and services from that kiosk device. So since starting about 2-3 years ago, we started exploring other channels for our platform, and basically we saw the mobile as probably one of the most important developments within the last 10 years or so. And we thought, well, how about we extend our services to the mobile platform, and hence the MyClick development. Okay,
so iMagic Group is the owner of MyClick?
That's right. It's wholly owned.
Wholly owned.
Yeah.
And then what is MyClick?
MyClick basically is one of the most easiest ways you can use your mobile phone to access information on the go. And basically how that works is using your camera phone and the MyClick software, you can easily take photos of what we call MyClick frames, and these are printed on newspapers, magazines, even product packaging. Any two-dimensional surface can have these frames. And using our software, you take a picture of this frame, and your phone then goes automatically to the relevant website. So say, for instance, you see an ad for the iPod in, let's say, Popular Science or something, and then you see one of our MyClick frames inside the ad. You take your mobile phone out, and then using our software, take a picture of that frame, and then your phone then gets redirected to the iPod website, so on and so forth.
So in Japan, for example, so-called QR codes are quite popular. And you'll find them in print magazines and on different media. Is this basically the same, or are there any differences?
The primary difference is that we use photo matching technology, so that we're not using the code, which is a black and white sort of representation. Instead, we use something that is much more user-friendly for end users, because when they look at our frames, it's a picture of something, like the iPod or a picture of an airplane. So it's very self-evident what the service or the product is related to that frame. So from an end user point of view, they can recognize it and interact with it much more intuitively than they would black and white code. But then again, I think it's really two different products. It's not so much in competition, but different sort of services and different positioning. I think the 2D barcode is probably very good for things like logistics or transactions, or that kind of sort of logistical side of the value chain, whereas the photo matching and the use of the icon, which is what we do, is much more marketing friendly and much more appealing to also the brands that are using these photo frames, because they can also use that as a branding opportunity and also as an additional communication opportunity with the end user.
So basically, just to be absolutely clear, I have a mobile phone, and there are certain things that I want to access on it, like maybe a promotion or a piece of content. I can basically take a picture of a brand that's in the MyClick database. Is that the case?
Yeah.
And send it to you?
Actually, if you'd like a demonstration of it, I can always do one maybe after the session.
Yeah, sounds good.
But basically what happens is you take a picture of it, and then it goes and matches the server. And the server then returns the relevant information.
So in the server, do you need basically like a library of all these different images?
Basically what we do is we register these images on behalf of the brand on our server. And so whenever somebody requests that particular image, we then do the matching at our server and then return the relevant information to the handset, the user.
So at the server side, there needs to be some matching technology. How complex, how sophisticated is the engine that controls all that?
From the client side to the server side, it's very sophisticated. We have patents on the system. What it involves is very reliable and accurate use at the client side, because you don't want the user to be finicking with the service. So as you'll see in the demo, it's very straightforward no matter what angle they take it at. The relative distance between the camera, phone, and the print media, all that can be very flexible, and the tolerance for error is we've got it to a certain level where it's very acceptable to the user. And then also on the server side, the accuracy and the reliableness of the photo matching is fine-tuned to quite an extent.
Great. So from a brand marketer's standpoint, like a brand director of an FMCG brand or an automobile company or what have you, what are some of the advantages or benefits that they would get from joining the MyClick service? For the brands that we've been working with so far, we have over 20 brand clients since our launch at the end of last year. And I think that's testimony to sort of the forward-thinkingness of these brands to reach out to their consumers. What we find is these brands are usually always on the forefront of serving their customers better. So they always find the latest and the newest way and the most convenient way to reach out to these consumers. And for them, because they'll be doing the media investment anyways, for them to add our element of the MyClick in their existing media plans, it's a very good way to make more of that investment, because it allows them to increase the number of touch points that these brands have with these customers. And the more touch points that your brand has with the consumer, the more goodwill you generate with your users. Because you're shown to be making more of an effort to interact with them. So, I mean, a simple analogy is, taking their website and extending it to all their media through the mobile internet and through the quick and easy access of the MyClick
service.
So they have this website content, promotions, product information, and so forth. How do you connect that to the phone?
Well, basically, we usually, when we work with the brands, we sort of advise them to keep their information simple, because we do acknowledge that the handset is entirely a different medium than the internet. The screen's smaller. Although the speed is increasing every day, you still have the limitation of the screen and the person's sort of natural way that they're using the phone. So we do try to keep the information to a very targeted amount. So you won't see like the entire website.
Yeah.
It'll usually be one or two products. It'll be tactical in nature,
right.
or more of a CRM kind of position. So that's how we usually advise the brands to use the website.
Right.
And increasingly, more and more brands are building these websites because they realize that the mobile trend is irreversible. I mean, technology doesn't go backwards.
Right, right.
And as these brands compete for more mind share in the market, they have to distinguish themselves, and the early adopters, the first movers, are usually the ones who establish themselves in a new channel quite early on. Say, for instance, Amazon.com, Amazon versus Barnes & Noble. Who has the bigger market share, even though Barnes & Noble was, way ahead in terms of the retail side of things. So I think lots of these brands that we're working with now already know how the technology changes the nature of the game, and so they are very quick, actually, to come on board. And how we got started in China was also very much part of this process, because sort of encouraged on by these brands.
How about in terms of data? You must collect a lot of interesting information, data, etc., that these brand clients can use in their other marketing activities.
Right.
Is that the case? And how does that work?
Well, basically, we're more of a channel,
okay,
rather than a data collection, because the data that we collect does belong to the client. So that's proprietary information to them, and we only use that information at the request of the client directly. So what we do is we provide the channel, the quickest and simplest way for the brand and the consumer to interact in the first place, which is where we believe we add the most value to the whole value chain.
Great. In terms of the MyClick application, this is something that you download onto your phone,
right?
Yeah. One of the challenges must be to get as many people in the market as possible to download that onto their handset,
right?
So that they can use the MyClick service. So how do you overcome that challenge?
Right. It's quite straightforward, actually. Basically, we make the process very simple to begin with. So the user, all they have to do is send an SMS containing the letter A to a certain service number, and then after they send that, the software then gets automatically downloaded onto your handset. It does require a little bit of explanation, but what we find is if the user is interested enough in the offer or the brand or whatever the content it is, this additional step is really not that much more than picking up the phone or waiting on a 1-800 number for the call center person to answer you 5 minutes later.
Right, might even be quicker and easier.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's jumping through hoops, but we're trying to make the process as simple as possible.
Are there any particular industries that are, best suited for, image recognition, the MyClick service?
Right. I think industries in terms of ones that really put their brand, place a lot of value in their brand, and being recognized as a market leader, being recognized as a company that is always finding ways to service their customers in the most convenient way possible on the customer's terms, and not the other way around. Because a lot of companies, maybe they don't have it right, but the ones that do, they usually think from the standpoint of the end user. And so what we find is industries that sort of have these objectives are well suited to our service.
On the consumer side, one of the requirements is that you have to have a camera phone.
Right.
And obviously everyone doesn't have one. So do you have any statistics on the penetration of that now and in coming years?
Yeah. Right now, I think it's about 2/3 of handsets have camera phone, have the camera function, and as more and more new handsets come into the market, I think that something like 7 million new handsets are added to the China market on a monthly basis, and most of these phones, the camera is already a default function.
Right.
So that I think is a very rapid process of replacement.
And when the consumers are using the MyClick service, are there any fees involved from the consumer side?
Besides their GPRS fee,
okay.
There's no other charges for using the MyClick service. And the GPRS fees in China are actually one of the most low fee structures, I think, of all the markets. Something like 5 yuan for whatever 20 megs or something. So it's already come down quite a lot, and we'll probably only see it come down even further in the future. So all the sort of trends are there for the mobile media to really take off. And the part that we play is to play sort of like the front end of the whole value chain, is to get those customers to the websites.
How about any challenges that you're facing now in getting the MyClick service out in the market and making it as popular as it possibly can be?
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you?
I think that the challenges is that me and the team only have a limited 24 hours in a day. I mean, if we can make days 48 hours, that'd be cool. But mainly it's a matter of getting out there and meeting with all the customers that are interested. And so
when you go to talk to a brand director or an executive in one of these potential client companies, what's the reaction that you get? Do they have concerns? Are they interested? Are they skeptical?
Right. It really depends on, I guess, the brands themselves and what kind of values that they have. Certainly, in the early days of the market, there's bound to be some brands that are wait-and-see approach, and we usually don't spend too much time on that segment of the market.
Right.
So of the brands that we do select, there's a selection process that we go through. Actually, we've been spending quite a fair amount of time selecting these brands that we go after. So in general, the response is quite good. So that's sort of the approach that we take.
And how about for the future? What are plans for MyClick and iMagic Group? Right.
We really want to participate in the sort of overall growth of the industry. We share with a lot of our partners and colleagues in the industry, very high hopes for the development of mobile marketing in general. And I think it'll need a lot, besides our company, it'll need a lot more concerted effort all across the board for the agencies, mobile marketers, other players in the value chain to work together to move the industry forward. And that's what we hope to sort of build along the way as well, so that we can all benefit from the growth of the industry.
Great. Well, I share your optimism. I think it should be an exciting few years, especially leading up to the Olympics next year.
Right, definitely.
In Beijing. Our guest today on mobile media has been Justin Tsang of MyClick. Justin, thanks for
Thank you.
for coming onto the show. And